Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now starting our next event here at the Nordic Pavilion in Glasgow. And the whole morning is about sustainable shipping. And this event is about a piece of the puzzle on how to ensure more sustainability in one specific part of the shipping sector, namely the cruise industry. So we have been running a project in the Danish Ministry for Environment, along with the government colleagues in the Nordic Council of Ministers. So we are talking about a Danish presidency project on sustainable cruises in the greater Baltic Sea area, and more specifically, we will inform you about Shorepower as a decarbonization tool to reduce air pollution in ports. And my name is Hald-Mortensen. I'm a special advisor in the Ministry for Environment of Denmark. If you look at the SDGs on the slides, the SDGs that are relevant for the talk today are SDG number 3 on good health and well-being. We will talk about health effects of shore power in terms of minimizing air pollution. We will also talk about the SDG number 11 because we have two speakers from Oslo and from Copenhagen. And of course, because we are here at the Woodstock for climate enthusiasts, the talk is of course relevant for climate action. If you look here at the picture of the ship, you see one of the cruise ships that is sailing in one of the Norwegian fjords. And the whole area that we're talking about to the right, that is the greater Baltic Sea area, and it covers the area from Oslo down to Denmark, and parts of Sweden, Gothenburg, all the way up to Stockholm, up to Helsinki, down from St. Petersburg to the Baltic countries, and down to Klaipeda and to the north of Germany. So this is the greater Baltic Sea region that we will be focusing on in our talk. The outline of our talk: first we will present a bit about cruise tourism, some facts about cruise tourism in our area. Then we will talk about air pollution and CO2 emissions from cruise ships. Then we will inform about the two cases from cities, some of the discussions, some of the political goals that these cities have in our area, from the city of Copenhagen and the city of Oslo. And then you will hear more about our declaration from the Nordic Council of Ministers, and we will hear a bit about implementation and how we have been involving almost 75 stakeholders across the industry. And finally, we will touch upon the next steps that are possible in our project and what the rest of the world, and perhaps more importantly, what other cruise regions could learn from our project. If you look here at the graph, you can see that from the year 2000, there were around 1 million cruise guests visiting the greater Baltic Sea area. And that is perhaps a low number in the beginning, but it rises quite quickly. There's a tripling of that number until 2010, and then it goes up to 6 million passengers all in all before the pandemic. And then when we had the pandemic, there was a natural decline, of course, but what we are hearing is that these cruise guests are quite loyal to this form of tourism, and we will see a rebound back. And with that rebound, the problem of air pollution is also back on the agenda. So when we look at one cruise ship, there is an inconvenient truth, and that is that one cruise ship docked in a port is equivalent to the NOx pollution of around 3,900 cars. And in the Ministry for Environment and also in the other governments, we focus not just on climate change and greenhouse gases, we also focus on NOxes and SOx and fine particles. Fine particles, it would be interesting for you to know that one cruise ship is equivalent to the fine particles of around 5,000 cars. So imagine or picture yourself in the port, and you will have 5,000 cars lining up with their engines running. That is the amount of particles produced by one cruise ship. And in many ports you will have 4 cruise ships lying next to each other. So there's a problem of air pollution. And when we look at the health impact of the cruise ships, this has actually been something that we have produced more facts about. We've produced research on this issue, and the Aarhus University and the center DCE are the experts in Denmark on this. And what we found was that just in 2 large cruise ports in Aarhus and Copenhagen, the cruise ships, the pollution from cruise ships is equivalent to 2,400 days of sick leave, or it leads to that sick leave for the people living in the cities. And it's particularly local air pollution that spikes during the period when the cruise ships are docked in the ports. So the societal cost to these 2 cities is around 7 million euros per year. Another inconvenient truth, because we are at a climate conference, is that cruise ships also lead to quite a lot of CO2 emissions. So in 2019, which was a very strong year for cruise tourism in the greater Baltic Sea region, you see here that, again in Copenhagen, that all the cruise ships that were there during the season leads to around 65% of the total CO2 emissions in the port of Copenhagen from ships. So they add up quite a lot, and I think that's worth noting, because we also are seeing increasing regulation, firstly of course from the Paris Agreement, and perhaps also from a deal that could be made in this venue in Glasgow, but also from Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission and the Commission President, that is really pushing the agenda of carbon neutrality for Europe. And lastly, here in July, on July 14th, when the Fit for 55 package was presented, and there was actually a quite important goal, which was that by 2030, all ports in Europe should have shore power in their ports, so that they could serve ships that are above 5,000 tons in size. So that's actually quite a lot of ports that need to bring shore power to the table. So with that, I give the floor now virtually to my good colleague Pelle Mortensen from the city of Copenhagen, who will present the first case on shore power and some of the decisions made in Copenhagen. And I hope Pelle is ready to present.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but we cannot see you.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just got a new computer today, and it seems the camera isn't working. But I will try to present my case anyway. You can just go to the first slide.
Yeah,
please.
that's fine. Okay. So we can you can present, and I will just change the slides. You just say change whenever you feel ready.
Yes, if you could just change to the first slide. But yes, thank you very much. As you can see here, there's been a steady increase of cruise passengers in Copenhagen over the last 10 years, and that's naturally good for the economy and for Copenhagen, but it also comes with some problems, mainly pollution in the residential areas surrounding the port. And as Christian mentioned, Danish studies have shown that it comes a lot of pollution from cruise ships. And in Copenhagen, and especially at Ragnhild, you can see here at the map, there's heavy residential areas nearby the port. So there's been a lot of focus on the cruise ship and the pollution from cruise ships, both by politicians and by residents and NGOs that has been working on different ways to minimize the pollution. In Copenhagen, we in 2012, the municipality of Copenhagen decided that Copenhagen has to be carbon neutral in 2025. And that means that we also have to have some focus on the pollution from cruise ships. And if you can switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. We have done several analyses of the topic, both in the municipality and by the government and by universities, and all the studies have shown that it is a big problem, and it is a problem that has to be sorted out in some way. So last year, the municipality allocated 77 million Danish kroner as a loan to the port and the city and port company here in Copenhagen. The project has to make connection at Nordhavn and Langelinje. Right now we are finding out how many ships that has to how many connections there will be at each port. So we are naturally also looking at how many cruise ships will be able to connect to Shorepower in the future, and thereby decide how many connections we should have at each port in Copenhagen. The main developer will be City and Port, which is a publicly owned company, and they will be the main developer of the plant, and hopefully the plant will be ready and in work in 2024. And lastly, the power from the grid in today's environment is from 50% green energy. So that was my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. We now have our next speaker, and we will take questions at the end. And I want to hear if Ragnhild, are you there?
Hello, Glasgow.
Yeah, we have Ragnhild there, and we can also see you. That's fantastic. And Ragnhild, you can just start your presentation, and I will change the slides. What you just say change.
Good, thank you. I am Ragnhild Møller-Stray, Senior Advisor for the Vice Mayor for Business Development and Public Ownership in the City of Oslo. In Oslo, we have strong ambitions through political consensus to reduce emissions. We have a climate strategy to zero emissions. We will have 95% reduction in Oslo's greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 compared to 2009. What we do? We have developed our climate budget for all sectors. We have a clear procurement strategy for zero-emission building sites. We are removing cars from the city center. We are removing parking spaces. Using car which is not electric cars is getting more and more expensive to drive into the city and to park. And we are working on our carbon capture project. Next slide, please. Cruise in Oslo. In 2019, the year before the COVID-19, 232 cruise ships and 234,000 cruise passengers visited Oslo. Pollution from cruise ships have been a discussion for some years in Oslo. Distribution of greenhouse gas emissions in Oslo from the port sector is 3% of the total emission in the city of Oslo. The city of Oslo owns the port of Oslo. In 2018, the city and the port made an action plan for Port of Oslo as a zero-emission port. The Port of Oslo is the largest public freight and passenger port in Norway. A port brings passengers, freight, and emissions. At the same time, maritime traffic reduces greenhouse gas emissions by more than half compared with road transport. So reducing emission for shipping has to be balanced in order to achieve good, consistent climate solutions. Next slide, please. Back in 2017, we measured the emissions for each shipping segment in Oslo. And then we focused building onshore power for the foreign ferries. The Ropax ferries to Denmark and Germany were the largest polluters in the port sector in Oslo. The ferries to Kiel in Germany already had onshore power in Oslo. And in January 2019, we opened onshore power at the terminal for the ferries to Denmark. Onshore power has since then been available for all the foreign ferries in Oslo. Next slides, please. We have continued focus to build shore power where it gives best effect. After foreign ferries, we have established shore power for the local ferries and are having new electric working boats. Next project is cement ships and container ships, if Enova provides funding. And cruise is not the segment in the maritime sector in Oslo which brings in most pollution. Still, we are working on cruise emissions. The Port of Oslo has in October this year started an application process for Enova funding for onshore power for cruise. In Oslo, some of the seafront areas in the city will be transformed. Most of the port activity, except passenger transport, is already moved out of the city center, a bit further south, still in Oslo. It is decided to reduce into one cruise quay in Oslo from 2023. And then the number of cruise ships to Oslo and the emission from the cruise segment naturally will be reduced. Next slide, please. We are at the moment making a new updated measure and will update our action plan for the port. It has happened a lot since 2018, and we are looking forward to make the 2022 report. We know ship owners using the Port of Oslo are considering alternative fuels like hydrogen, some already within 2025. We are on our way to a zero-emission port and a zero-emission city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ragnhild. Thank you. And now we are back here in Glasgow in person. And I think it's useful to hear the considerations and the discussions that are going on in the cities, in the two capitals. In many ways, it is the cities that will play a leading role. But what we've also seen is that ministers for the environment and climate, along with mayors in the cities, have received quite a lot of letters from citizens that are concerned. And due to these letters and also articles in the media, there has been an increasing focus also from the political level, also at the ministerial level, to do something about shore power and trying to reduce the air emissions in the ports from cruise ships. So one of the things that we did as governments was to form a declaration that we could all agree on. And it is the government of Sweden, the government of Finland, the government of Denmark, the government of Norway, and also the government of Iceland. It's Greenland, and it's the Faroe Islands and Åland. They are all part of the Nordic Council of Ministers. And when we agree on something, then we try to have a common position. And the declaration the declaration is presented here in the highlights. So what we are saying is that we are echoing the 2030 vision from the Prime Ministers in the declaration, that we aim to create the most sustainable and integrated region in the world. We also recognize that there is a growing awareness among our citizens of air pollution from cruise ships and ports. We recognize that technological solutions exist. Shorepower is one of them. There are also other solutions, but Shorepower is now a tested solution. And they set the goal that by 2030, Shorepower should be available in the main cruise ports in the greater Baltic Sea region. And there is also an appeal to the cruise lines that they should send more cruise ships that can actually take Shorepower. They should send these ships to our region. And right now it's around 34% of the cruise ships that are coming that can actually take Shorepower. And finally, the declaration says that there should be Nordic leadership at all levels, from the government level to the city level to the port level, and also by cruise lines. So one thing, as you all know, is to have a declaration, a political document. Another thing is to implement and bring it into action. And we have had actually quite a big focus in this project on implementation. So we'll talk a bit about that now. So one of the things we did was that we have had two different consultant firms assisting us. We have had one consultant that did a roadmap report, which was based on stakeholder interviews and based on the webinars that we held during the pandemic. We actually had anticipated to host several seminars, but we had to turn every single one of them into webinars. That roadmap report has been discussed in working groups, and 2 weeks ago we hosted a implementation workshop in Copenhagen where we brought 40 key experts, 40 representatives from our stakeholders to Copenhagen to discuss. And so all in all, in the last 2 years, we have involved 75 different stakeholder institutions in our working groups. The working groups are naturally formed into a governance track, a technology track, and a regulatory track. Some of the things we have identified in this project is that on governance, there's a need for the ports to work together and to form joint applications to, for example, the Connecting Europe facility or to the European Investment Bank. So governance is also about ensuring that there is an agreement on the roadmap ahead. Governance is also about sharing best practices among the ports and among the cities about what works when it comes to installing Shorepower. And there is a need for political and financial support, meaning that some of these events, some of all this action that we have been instigating has happened because of funding. In the technology track, there's been a big focus on Shorepower because it simply is quite effective. But Shorepower, we will see that coming now in Helsinki, we will see it in Stockholm, in Copenhagen, in Oslo, and in Bergen, and also in Aarhus. And we also see it in the part of northern Germany, in our region in Rostock and Kiel. So it's coming in the major cruise ports, but in the project there has been concerns from the smaller ports. What kind of solutions should we offer to them? What should they use? And we've had presentations and knowledge being generated by different fuel cell companies. And we see hydrogen-based fuel cells or methanol-based fuel cells perhaps as a possible road to go down for some ports. There's also this question regarding alternative fuels, because this region also wants to be leading on green hydrogen or other types of e-fuels that adds some complexity to the decisions made by the ports. And we've discussed that in our working groups, but I think more discussion is needed, and it comes down to the individual port to make these technology choices. In terms of regulation, you probably know that the EU has put forward a very ambitious package on July 14th. The Fit for 55 package has a 2030 target that there should be shore power in all the major ports that have ships above 5,000 tons. On regulation, we've also had one development regarding taxes on electricity. Denmark has tax exempted shore power, and we know that other governments are working on the same issue. It's important to create a better business case for shore power. So with that, I give the floor now to Maria Boos from Plag in Bergen. And Maria, are you there?
I'm here, Christian.
Yes, we can also see you.
Perfect.
And we can also hear you.
Yes, thank you very much. Plag is, as you mentioned, we are a shore power company. We design, build, own and operate shore power facilities in close collaboration with ports. And our goal is to contribute to speed up the construction of the necessary infrastructure so that all types of ships, including cruise ships, can connect to shore power. If we go to the next slide, the illustration shows that, this is existing and decided shore power installations of Northern Europe. And as we can see, Norway is really at the forefront when it comes to shore power. In fact, if you count the number of ports globally that has some type of shore power capability, you will today find 45% of those ports in Norway. And why is that? There are several reasons, obviously, but one being access to public funding, both for the building of the infrastructure, but also access to public funding for retrofit of ships, which has been really important as well. And then we've seen a push from different types of stakeholders. Local government, like we've seen in Oslo and Copenhagen, is of course important. And we've also seen push from charterers, for instance, in the port of Bergen, where we have a lot of offshore supply vessels. Equinor has been a really important part in pushing for retrofit of vessels so they can connect to shore power. And this means that in Norway, at least, both ports, ships and ship owners have a unique experience when it comes to shore power. Yes, but most of these shore power installations are not for cruise. So there is definitely a need to speed up this development. And investing in a shore power installation is a big decision and a major investment for a port. And especially if we're talking a high voltage shore power installation for cruise ships. And we typically see that barriers for ports are funding, how to finance the shore power facility, but also on the knowledge side, electric installations not being at the core of what a port has most experience and knowledge on. And if you turn to the next slide, Christian, this is the business model of Plag, and it is exactly funding and competence that Plag brings to the table. We have a solid owner in BKK, or Eveny, as it recently changed name to, and we have many years of experience working with building shore power facilities and also operating shore power installations around Norway. And by making long-term partnerships with ports, typically structured as a joint venture, we have a great starting point for a good shore power project. So together with the local ports, Plag will plan, design and find out what type of shore power facility we need to build at this specific port based on input from the port itself. We also have a great overview of the suppliers so that we know how we can challenge them in order to make even better shore power installations in the future. We will also overview the construction process and also take care of operation and maintenance, but of course using local sources to do the job. And then we have our own systems that take care of invoicing and reporting, and also gives us all the numbers on how much emissions we save, which is also a really important part of shore power, as it's not a goal just to build it, it's a goal to make it for it to be used as much as possible, and that requires a great coordination and cooperation between Plag with its competence and the port with its experience and knowledge about the specific port. And today, Plag has around 10 shore power projects ongoing around Norway, with 5 of them being shore power projects for cruise ships. And if you turn to the next slide, we will visit one of the ports that we have a collaboration with. The port of Bergen is one of Norway's largest ports and the largest cruise port. And we have just finished Europe's largest shore power facility for cruise in the port of Bergen. Unfortunately, due to Corona, we have yet to connect a ship, but we're very much looking forward to that. But the illustrations on this slide shows the effects of the shore power installations that are already in operations at the port. And what we see is that from the very beginning in 2015, with the first shore power installation, it has been a massive increase in the sale of energy to ships. Resulting in much better air quality locally, also reduced noise. And for instance, in 2020, when we had over 11 gigawatt hours of shore power sold to ships, we saved more than 8,500 tons of CO2. And as you can see, the first half of this year, we have also exceeded more than what we sold for the total of 2020. So we're looking at doubling for 2021 compared to last year, which then again will also result in massive savings in CO2 for the city, which is good.
Can I change?
And if you turn to the next and my last slide, Plag is really, we think it's really important to show the effects of the shore power installations that we build in collaboration with ports. It's not just about finding the funding to build a shore power installation. You need to have ships that can connect. And when ships connect, we do save emissions. And if we have a renewable source at the end of the grid, as we have in Norway, we also help to decarbonize the maritime industry. And when we connect a cruise ship, we help to make a more sustainable cruising industry. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And maybe just to highlight again, as Maria says, hydropower makes up 99% of the energy mix in Norway. In Iceland, Iceland is 100% running on renewable energy. So 73% is on hydropower and 27% is geothermal. Denmark, the wind energy makes up around 56% of the energy production in Denmark. Biomass and biogas is around 18%, and on a lot of days in Denmark, 50% of electricity is made by renewables. In Finland, 52% is made up of renewables of the electricity there, and that's sources such as hydropower, wind power, and wood chips and biomass. And Sweden, the goal, Sweden, the facts there is that it's 54%, which is renewables in their energy mix, and it's coming from hydropower, biomass, and again, that all in all, that shows that the Nordic countries are indeed, they have an energy mix that is quite sustainable, and it's getting better year by year. So, thank you to Maria with some practical information about how we actually can build shore power. The major findings from the project, as we conclude, it's very fruitful to address technology, to address financing and governance in the same project, to have stakeholders that are involved in all three thematic tracks, because this is a complicated endeavor to bring sustainability and shore power to a region consisting of almost 10 different countries. Stakeholder involvement has really been quite important in this project. We have created knowledge through webinars during the pandemic and also through workshops where we have brought experts to the table that they have presented their different solutions, such as fuel cells and such as shore power being presented from different ports that have experience from Hamburg and also from Kristiansand and Bergen and other places. Another reflection is that we need to have better indicators and KPIs and agreed KPIs on sustainability. So during the project, and even now as we conclude the project, the discussion on what is actually sustainable cruises, what is sustainability all about, that is something that we are still discussing with stakeholders. And the more clarity we can get with that and the more agreement and convergence on sustainability indicators, the better. So when we look at what we have reflected upon, and also if we look at what could other regions use the project for, and here I'm thinking about the Mediterranean region, and I'm also thinking about the Caribbean, which is very popular. Well, I think we can say that we need more sustainable cruise destinations around the world. First, we need to say that sustainability is about air pollution, it's about fine particles, and it's about NOx, but it's also about decarbonizing through less greenhouse gases coming from the ships. In that, to achieve that, we need a green energy mix, and that you cannot really have shore power without having the grid stability and the green energy sources to decarbonize cruise tourism. But if we can get that, then shore power does have some effects that you have been hearing about in this presentation. I think it's also a key finding that stakeholder involvement has been quite important. You have to reach quite far out into your stakeholder landscape to make sure that you get everybody involved and around the table, and then you can cluster them into different groups and thematic tracks. And even in the coming years, I think we've reached out to Cruise Baltic, which is a marketing organization. They are increasingly important now that we would like to get cruise lines to actually send the ships that can take shore power. Public financial support is necessary, but here we have had our consultant looking into this, and the key finding is that green finance is actually on the rise. The European Investment Bank has been asked by the European Commission to become Europe's climate bank. There are the Connecting Europe facility, which is focused more on shore power, more hard infrastructure. But there's also the EU Interreg program, which is available for best practices for governing and governance related issues. All in all, I think public support is really important, and green finance can definitely help accelerate the transition that we see in the region. And I think finally we can say that shore power is really important for the port and also for the cruise lines, because it can give the cruise lines a license to operate, meaning that many Nordic capitals are very ambitious with their climate plans. And cruise lines need to fit into this reality where the cities have these very ambitious climate targets. So with all that, we welcome questions from the floor. and I don't know if there are also some questions online that we can take. Our technician says no. So if there are any questions from the floor, then we have a microphone circulating. Okay, people have had so much information that they perhaps are overwhelmed.
Well, I can ask how are the Nordic countries sharing this? You mentioned that it's relevant. Can you elaborate on that? How it's being shared?
Yeah. So the project findings, or yeah. So we have had the governments participate in a steering group. The ministries of the environment and climate have been part of the project from the very beginning. We've also shared the best practices and the findings by involving the Norwegian Maritime Authority and the Swedish Transportstyrelsen. I think that the transport agency have been involved. So the steering group have been quite important in this. But now we will see that this project is concluding, and the governments will back off a little bit, and then ask the stakeholders to actually lead and to perhaps form a joint forum, or in other ways try to now actually implement this political vision. We will of course be still following this, but it's important now that it's the stakeholders that take up the lead. Thank you for that. Yes, another question over here.
Thanks very much. Just building on that previous question, are you doing any work to expand it beyond the Nordic region as well, to influence shore power globally? Well, first, one obvious place to look into that is the EU Commission. So in the rest of Europe, we know that DG Mare in Brussels, as part of the Commission, is working on a sustainable cruise charter. We are also sending them all the findings and all the things that we have done, so they know more about how to expand it to the rest of Europe. We have been actually in the project talking with the Californian government, and we have been looking into the regulations from the Californian Air Resources Board, and they are actually quite progressive. So they have some regulation that says that you need, if you come as a ship 6 times, then you can only come, those 6 times, and then you need to take shore power. And so it's kind of like mandatory to actually use shore power. In terms of the Caribbean, which is a very popular cruise destination, we have not reached out to them yet, but it is possible. I don't think my employer, the Ministry of Environment, would allow me to go to the Caribbean and present in person, even though I would like that. But I think we can definitely reach out to them and see, what. But my concern with the Caribbean is that the energy stability in the grid might not be very strong, and I think the energy mix might not also be based on renewables, as we have seen here is the case in the Nordics. I know that the Mediterranean, there are perhaps some possibilities to reach out to them and to talk to the Spanish government and to the Italian government. They have their own discussions about shore power, so maybe we can share our best practices with them. Thank you for that question. Okay, I think our time is up. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you to the speakers, to Ragnhild, to Pelle and Maria. And it has been a pleasure to inform you about this topic that we've been working on for the last 2 years. Bye for now.